Cursed spirits are one of the main enemies in Jujutsu Kaisen. With their strength ranging from non-existent to city-destroying, some are obviously stronger than others. But which one is definitively the strongest? And which ones are just kind of mid? Well, today we'll be looking at all 18 notable cursed spirits in Jujutsu Kaisen to figure out just that. Here is the criteria I used, and let's get started with the weakest cursed spirits in Jujutsu Kaisen, Flyheads. Flyheads are the chicken of the world of Jujutsu. What do I mean by that? Well, if you Google chicken, the animal does not come up, the food does. Humans have dominated chicken so thoroughly that we see it mostly as food, and Jujutsu sorcerers have pretty much done the same thing to flyheads. Their entire existence has been industrialized by sorcerers. These things are not a threat to anyone at all. They're a nuisance at most. And even windows like Ijichi have little to no issue taking them down if need be. There's really nothing else to really say about these things, so let's just move on to 17, which is the inventory cursed spirit used by Geto and Toji. This cursed spirit is rather interesting. It has one of the best utilities of any cursed spirit, as it is able to store cursed tools within its pucker of a mouth. There seems to be no limit to its storage capabilities, as we saw Toji pull a number of weapons out of it, and it's also insinuated this huge swarm of flyheads comes from within it as well, which would be pretty impressive if it was true. Unfortunately, this thing is still extremely weak, as it has basically no offensive capabilities of any kind. Really, the only reason it is above flyheads is its utility, because that is the only thing separating it from being just a normal flyhead. This used condom is not a threat to anyone unless it has a competent master, which is why I'm putting it in second to last. At 16, we actually have a somewhat threatening cursed spirit, the Roppongi cursed spirit. Ooh. Who am I kidding? This thing is weak as hell. It doesn't take a genius to look at this thing and determine it's weak. I mean, it got beaten by Nobara, who's not exactly a marker of strength in the world of Jujutsu. It didn't have any notable abilities besides being able to go through a wall, which like Big Whoop, Yuji did it too, and it also didn't have a name or speaking capabilities, which is another sign that it's pretty weak. At 15, we have a tie between the Yasuhachi Bridge Curse and the Fish Curse. The Yasuhachi Curse and the Fish Curse are a little bit weird to rank, but they're essentially the same thing in different fonts. A huge group of cursed spirits that are basically just one curse. They seem to be about equally powerful, but the Yasuhachi Bridge Curse might be slightly stronger since it did take more sorcerers to defeat it, but it also didn't look like Megumi, Nobara, or Yuji were ever actually in some danger here, so maybe not. Really, the only person that could potentially be threatened by these cursed spirits is like maybe a baby, because they suck at whack-a-mole and are literally babies. Really, the only reason I'm putting this curse above the others is because we at least know it killed some people, and the curses below it have no evidence of doing that. At 14 is this cursed spirit, which I've affectionately named Big Nose. I hope the reason is obvious. This is the first big jump in power we have in cursed spirits, going from cursed spirits that could not be higher than grade 3 to this semi-grade 1 cursed spirit that gave Inumaki and Yuta a bit of trouble, and I do mean a bit. Big Nose's main method of attack seems to be these beams of light that apparently do damage to anyone who gets caught in one. These seem to do decent damage, as they were able to disintegrate the floors they came in contact with. On top of this, Big Nose also seems to have some pretty decent defensive capabilities, as it took literally no damage from Yuta's attack, and it also took a lot of effort from Inumaki to destroy it as well. Overall, it's a very solid cursed spirit, but it's not anything special. Unlike the most clever cursed spirit in Jujutsu Kaisen, Kogai, the grasshopper cursed spirit, who is our curse at number 13. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure which of these two is actually stronger. Big Nose seems to have more raw destructive power than Grasshopper, but Grasshopper is capable of meaningful human speech, which is a pretty strong indicator of strength. He does hold his own against Yuji decently well, and I'm pretty sure Shibuya Yuji is stronger than Yuta and Inumaki were here, so that's another point in favor of the Grasshopper. I don't really have much else to say on this guy, so let's just move on to number 12 with the Rainbow Dragon. This curse is a bit weird to rank. It's one of the curses Teen Geto used the most, and it seems to be decently strong. According to the special grade, it had the hardest skin of any of his cursed spirits at the time, meaning it was likely among his strongest cursed spirits in general. This is a pretty good mark of strength, considering Geto did have vengeful cursed spirits in his arsenal, which we will be talking about in a little bit, as well as this giant that is kind of implied to be a special grade by Todo. The issue with the Rainbow Dragon is that it doesn't seem to do anything special on offense. It just kind of attacks using its claws and mouth, which really is not all that impressive for a dragon, and it's even less impressive compared to some of the other cursed spirits we'll be talking about, like the cursed spirit at 11, the Finger Bearers. These are the first cursed spirits we are talking about that could truly be considered strong. The Finger Fingerers are a variation of cursed spirits that form and gain power from Sukuna's fingers. They are extremely adept at cursed energy manipulation, and it is their main method of attacking, although they do seem quite adept at close combat as well. Really, the only negative these guys have against them is that we only see them face the first years, so it's hard to get a true gauge of their strength. They're basically the gatekeepers of being a strong cursed spirit, as there is a huge gap in strength between the Rainbow Dragon and them. At 10, we have the vengeful cursed spirit Kuchisake Onna. Kuchisake is another one of Teen Ghetto's strongest cursed spirits. It fights by casting a simple domain, and then forcing her opponents into a binding vow within it where they must answer her question. Once the question is answered, she will attack with scissors, which seem to move pretty fast and also do decent physical damage. The official grade of this cursed spirit is unknown, but considering it is capable of casting a simple domain and speech, it is likely a special grade cursed spirit. Vengeful spirits appear to be quite strong in general too, which corroborates this. And even Toji was a bit impressed by the spirit's strength before overwhelming her with his physical prowess. This is the same Toji that easily beat Dagon, so for him to even acknowledge her as somewhat strong is pretty significant. But besides that, we don't have any notable evidence for or against her being a broken cursed spirit, which is why she sits here in the middle of the ranking. At 9, we have the imported cursed spirit Ganesha. I'm gonna be honest, this one could be much higher up. It is said this cursed spirit can remove obstacles, but we don't know exactly what that means or exactly how it works. The only time we saw it used successfully was on the non-sorcerers of the US military, where it removed the obstacles, the soldiers, from the White House for Kenjaku. This display seems pretty strong, but we really have no idea how this ability would interact with actual sorcerers. Kenjaku did try to use this cursed spirit on Yuki to keep her at bay, which implies that he believes it could potentially even give a special grade sorcerer trouble, but I feel like this is a bit of a stretch and he was mostly using it to gauge her strength. Really, the main reason this cursed spirit is not higher up is that we just lack evidence, and I don't feel comfortable putting it above other cursed spirits we have seen more and know much more about. At 8, we have the Smallpox Deity. The first of many cursed spirits to have a domain expansion, the Smallpox Deity is no slouch. It's a registered special grade cursed spirit, and its domain allows it to instantly kill anyone that cannot break out of the grave it places them in. As far as we know, there is no limit to how many graves the deity can create, nor how often they can be created. The only condition seems to be a direct line of sight with the curse's target. This spirit probably could have killed Mei Mei if Ui had not been in the domain with her, as we saw that even she was struggling to close the distance between her and the deity. This gives us a pretty good idea of how strong the Smallpox Deity is. It can likely be a strong grade 1 sorcerer in a 1v1, but herein lies the issue with the diseased dumbass. It's too stupid to figure out how to deal with 2 opponents. Like seriously, this guy lost the second Ui got involved, which is kind of embarrassing for a special grade cursed spirit, as pretty much all the other ones we'll be talking about can handle up to 4 or 5 grade 1 sorcerers at a time, like Dagon, who is the next cursed spirit we are talking about. Despite being the weakest disaster curse, there is still a huge gap in power between Dagon and the Smallpox Deity. The Smallpox Deity ultimately loses to a grade 1 sorcerer and her prodigy little brother. Dagon almost beat 2 grade 1 sorcerers, Maki and Megumi, single-handedly. That's the difference in power we have here. Dagon, like all the disaster curses, uses cursed energy to control an aspect of nature. In his case, it's water and the life that dwells within it. He uses this outside his domain to summon copious amounts of water that can easily drown people in enclosed areas. This sure hit allows him to easily manage multiple opponents at once. And honestly, even without it, his manipulation of his Shikigami is top-notch, and it really shows his capabilities with his curse technique. But there is one area that Dagon really suffers in, and that's experience, which I think was the biggest contributor to his loss to Toji. More combat experience is never a bad thing, and having a better understanding of combat jujutsu probably would have helped him fend off the Puppet of Carnage rather than getting poked full of holes by it. I don't really have anything else to say about Dagon, so let's move on to Hanami, who is our curse at number 6. Hanami and Dagon are weird to rank, and I think they could be seen as interchangeable depending on how you value a cursed spirit. One of the aspects that Hanami excels in compared to Dagon is her defenses, as she took a beating during the Goodwill event, including multiple black flashes and a number of hits with Playful Cloud, all while sustaining very little visible damage. She also has far more abilities within her plant-based curse technique than Dagon has in his water one, as we see her use roots to attack and restrain, curse buds to deal damage over time, and the flower fields to distract opponents. She does also have her own domain expansion, but we never get to see it, so it's kind of hard to take into account. So with all this going for her, why do I say her and Dagon might be interchangeable? Well, despite having so much going for her, every one of Hanami's feats is against weaker sorcerers than Dagon's are. With the exception of Todo, no one here is stronger than any of the sorcerers here. In fact, 2 of the sorcerers are just weaker versions of of the ones Dagon fought. This inherently makes her accomplishments a little bit less impressive than Dagon's, but she does accomplish more than him as she did actually defeat Megumi and Maki, which Dagon couldn't do. It's really a 6 of one, half dozen of the other kind of deal, except for one aspect. Hanami knows domain amplification. This might not seem like a big deal, and it's probably not, but it is a powerful and complex ability that we never saw Dagon display, so that really just pushes Hanami above her fishy friend by a tiny bit. And now we move into the top 5, starting with Kuroushi, the cockroach cursed spirit. Kuroushi is one of those cursed spirits that feel like they kind of got the short end of the stick in terms of who they faced. The spirit holds immense power, being able to devour humans in a matter of seconds, reproduce itself to avoid death, and it even holds a cursed tool that is perfect for it in the Festering Life Sword. It is a cursed spirit that even strong sorcerers like Uro and Ryu did not want to fight, so it's unfortunate that this cursed spirit had to run into one of the few characters that is able to instantly fry curses by outputting positive energy. But in the short time that the bug curse does fight, it shows just how strong it is, as it does some pretty significant damage to Yuta during their short fight, and also severs Uro's arm with little issue. I definitely think Kuroushi is among the strongest cursed spirits in the series, and it's almost assuredly stronger than Hanami and Dagon. If you're not convinced of this, another way you can think about it is whether you think Uro and Ryu would fare better against Kuroushi or against those two. And when I think about these fights, I see Uro and Ryu struggling more with Kuroushi. At 4, we have the other cursed spirit from the Culling games, Cursed Noya. Cursed Noya is a really broken cursed spirit. Not only can he move at over 2,000 miles per hour, but he also pushes projection sorcery to the absolute limit, making it absurdly overpowered. I mean, he literally froze air particles with his technique, and then their movements caused small explosions. How insane is that? He was able to beat semi-awakened Maki within inches of death, and he probably would have killed her if Sumo and Katana had not shown up at the perfect time. But none of that is what makes him completely broken. What makes the fastest sexist in Japan broken is his domain. Time Cell Moon Palace pushes the projection sorcery technique to the absolute furthest it can possibly go. By injecting cells of animation into opponents and freezing individual cells in their bodies, the technique can cause bleeding both internally and externally, and it can likely cause organ damage as well. And if victims of the sure hit try to move, these movements have the potential to sever limbs entirely. This domain is one of the few domains that can potentially beat the likes of Gojo and Sukuna, giving Cursed Noya an insanely high skill ceiling. Really, the only thing holding this curse back is its insanely large ego, which literally costs the spirit its fight against Maki. Now let's move into the top 3, and I'm gonna be completely honest. It is incredibly hard to rank these final 3 accurately, and I keep going back on the correct order, especially for 2 and 3, which are Jogo and Mahito. See, when it comes to our criteria, each one excels at a specific category. Mahito is exceptional at killing humans and dealing damage to humans, as that's literally what his curse technique is supposed to do. As the cursed spirit born of human hatred and fear towards other humans, it makes sense that he would essentially act as the arbiter of death for them, and that's exactly what Idol Transfiguration does, allowing him to manipulate the soul into whatever he sees fit. Idol Transfiguration is just one of the best curse techniques in this series in general, and it gives Mahito an extreme level of flexibility that evolves as he gets better at fighting. We see him use it to change the shape of his own body, create body doubles, make hard-hitting minions, turn humans into weapons, and so much more. And he does it all fluidly. It was truly a curse technique that was made for Mahito, and it allows him to kill and torture humans with ease. Jogo, on the other hand, excels in the destruction side of things. It should be obvious why. His use of lava has been seen doing major damage to roads and buildings, and that's not even mentioning Maximum Meteor, which pretty much destroyed an entire city block in Shibuya. I think out of all the disaster curses, Jogo most likely has the highest raw destructive power, but he's also most likely the most frail. It's heavily implied that he fits into the build of a glass cannon, meaning he hits extremely hard, but he's also extremely feeble. But it's honestly hard to tell, because the only people he fights against are Gojo and Sukuna, so obviously he's going to look weak compared to them. That's like putting Jake Paul in the ring with peak Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali. Obviously he's going to look a lot weaker compared to them, despite being a lot stronger than the average cursed spirit. On top of this, both have very good domains, which are both able to kill sorcerers with little issue, as Mahito's domain allows him to automatically apply Idol Transfiguration to all targets within it, and it was mentioned by Gojo that the heat from Jogo's domain would be enough to kill the average sorcerer in a matter of seconds. So how do we decide between the two? Well, let's go back to the criteria. As we just stated, Mahito excels at direct human killing, and Jogo excels in destructive capabilities. But I think Jogo just has more raw power. Think about how much Mahito has had to develop his technique just to come close to where Jogo can be with lava. Mahito also has to use perishable resources to pull off feats that Jogo can just do with cursed energy as well. And while they are still impressive, they're not as impressive as just being able to do it. Plus, Jogo got called strong by Sukuna, which is some pretty high praise. So overall, I'd have to say that Mahito is at 3 and Jogo is at 2, but I totally understand if you think they should be switched around. So what cursed spirit could be stronger than the disaster curses or the Culling Game curses? Well, it's the one that was so strong she got her own movie. It's the Queen of Curses herself, Cursed Rika. And in case you're wondering, no, Sukuna is not a cursed spirit. He is a sorcerer with the title of King of Curses and Poison. Anyway, to give you a good idea of just how strong Cursed Rika is, let's look at the Shikigami version of her that joins Yuta in the manga. This Rika was able to easily destroy a bridge, palm a cursed energy blast from Ryu with basically no damage, restrain and do physical damage to 20-finger Sukuna, change her size at will, and kill hundreds if not thousands of the cursed spirits that were released on Kenjaku's death within a few minutes. This is already really impressive stuff, especially what she was able to do to 20-finger Sukuna and her durability. But let's remember that Cursed Rika is supposed to be much more powerful than this. This one cursed spirit was supposed to make Geto equal to Gojo. It was supposed to allow Geto to realize his dream of killing every human on the planet. That's how strong Cursed Rika was supposed to be. Now, the reason I'm saying supposed is because this was written in the universe of Jujutsu Kaisen 0, which was written a few years before the main series of Jujutsu Kaisen, and as such didn't have the full power scaling of the series, meaning Gojo was likely far weaker than what we know him as now. This means the idea of strength behind Cursed Rika is likely a bit weaker than what the face value seems to be, but that doesn't mean she's weak. I still think she's the strongest cursed spirit in the series. I mean, she was a large part of why Yuta got so strong so fast, to the point of being able to hold his own against a sorcerer 11 years older than him and with much more experience. She's called the Queen of Curses for a reason, and with bottomless cursed energy and highly destructive power, it should come as no surprise that she tops this list. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and my second channel. Also, maybe join the Discord if you want, it's up to you. Thank you so much for all the support as always, and I'll see you in the next video.